Kandinsky is a comprehensive exhibition of this artist's life. It really traces the full arc of his career from his early years in Munich in 1896 until the end of his career in France in 1944. This exhibition brings together 47 paintings from the Guggenheim's collection in New York, as well as the art gallery's wonderful watercolor and a number of illustrated books to really tell a fulsome, comprehensive story of Kandinsky's life and career. Kandinsky is an artist who was endlessly creative and innovating as he moved from representation to abstraction and then back again. And this exhibition begins with his early career works when he was working in Munich from 1896 until 1914. These jewel-colored landscapes date from 1909, 1910, when Kandinsky was largely working out of doors in the Bavarian countryside, so outside of Munich. And he would take these small boards out into the countryside. In some examples, you can actually see the pinholes in the corner when he would mount the boards to a larger board. And Kandinsky was deeply invested in printmaking in these early years. And the other interesting thing about this suite of works is how his practice in print and works on paper is being translated to the board. So some examples are the flattened perspective, these real clear delineated forms, and the ways in which he uses the so-called non-colors of printmaking, black and white, in these really exquisitely colored paintings. His second chapter, if you will, is his time spent in Russia during the Russian Revolution and the First World War, where he's taking up this more lyrical language and abstraction. Kandinsky was very interested in those correspondences between color and sound and those emotions that colors could elicit in the viewer. A very easy example is the color yellow. So this idea that yellow had a correlation to the trumpet blast, that it was this vibrant, bold, assertive color. You don't need to know Kandinsky's color theories to feel that energy when you see his use of color, how he deploys it in a canvas. Similarly, when you think through how we respond to blue, and this color for Kandinsky that was among the most spiritually resonant, a color that's calming and kind of stabilizes you and anchors you. Kandinsky would produce 10 works in his lifetime that he gave the title composition, and they start from the very beginning of his career and pull through until the end, until the late 1930s. So this work, Composition 8, is really a defining moment of his post-World War I achievement. It represents something he was working through that kind of came to completion in this final work that he gave the title composition. So it's an important work not only for Kandinsky's career, but also for the Guggenheim's holdings. And Kandinsky at this moment, he's working at the Bauhaus in Germany, and he's very much interested in this geometric language and how the circle, the square, the triangle, the line, all these different forms and shapes could continue to elicit those emotions in the viewer and continue to evoke these kind of psychological associations. So he wants the triangle to be that kind of agitating form, that unsettling one. The circle still having these connotations of balance and harmony, a more calming effect. This work also exhibits a real musicality, and this is something that you see throughout Kandinsky's career. He had grown up with music, a music enthusiast. He cites these various encounters with music, with avant-garde composers as really defining moments early in his career. And by the time we see him here in 1923 with Composition 8, you really see that staccato, that rhythm, that musicality working its way through this geometric language. And for Kandinsky, still continuing to think about those correspondences of sound and color so that we can kind of hear this composition coming to life. His final chapter, his late life works, are in France when he's working outside of Paris. Around the Circle from 1940 expresses contemporary concerns, but also Kandinsky's real persistent, abiding interest in Siberian and Russian folklore and cultural practices. He starts this painting in the spring of 1940, but very soon after, Paris is occupied by the Nazis, and he is compelled to leave his home in the suburbs and head to the south of France. So he would come back and finish this picture some months later. So the painting is kind of straddling this really critical historical moment. When he comes to Paris, he describes the light, the very colors of the city, as deeply influencing this shift yet again in his practice. So here we see more pastel colors, the pinks, the violets, the golds, the turquoises, really colors that were not so different from his Russian origins. So again, resurfacing. There's also this interest in the natural sciences, so more softer biomorphic forms, things that almost feel microscopic. One example is this form that almost seems bird-like in the upper right that's kind of lifting us up to this higher plane. So these ideas of transformation and metamorphosis would be very much explored at this moment. Kandinsky's work, for me, has these really joyful moments, uplifting moments. We see it in these exquisite passages, these vibrant color relationships. And I think it's what keeps him feeling so fresh today, over 100 years later. There's a real vitality there that really goes back to that heart of the transformative power of art, that it can be uplifting.